was an interesting and tragic story about his son, Dr. Ray Larzalaire. Dr. Ray apparently contracted a serious case of pneumonia, and he was quite a young man at that time, and steadily got worse. Of course, we didn't have antibiotics then, so there was supportive care only. And finally, the determination was made that unless somebody could find some oxygen somewhere, he would not survive. So his friends were sent to San Diego on an emergency trip to find a tank of oxygen. And they were able to obtain this, but sadly not in time to save his life. Other doctors who came to town early were Dr. Bernie Graybill, who came in 1933. And he practiced, I think, until about 1977. He was in his 80s. And he was a very short man, but as has been mentioned before, he moved very rapidly. And if you saw him coming down the hall, and if you blinked a couple of times, he was probably already by you. Other early doctors were Dr. Linus Adams, and the old medical floor was named the Adams floor at the old hospital. Dr. Jack Flays came in 1940, and I believe worked with Dr. Graybill. Now, Dr. Jack Flays was called into the Army during World War II. He became somewhat of a war hero in that he was on a carrier when it was hit by a kamikaze plane, and supposedly the story was that he headed a team of surgeons that worked 72 straight hours to try to save lives after that attack. In addition, Dr. Flays was County Medical Society president in 1965. I believe he retired in the early 1970s. Now, just briefly talking about some of the early hospitals in Escondido, the first one for which there's a record was called Rock Ledge Sanitarium, opened in 1914. And it was on a hill in West Escondido between 13th and 14th Street, kind of in a rural agricultural area, not the ideal place for a hospital, but it was actually opened by two Chicago doctors who thought that they would send their recuperating patients to Escondido to get better. And it was not terribly successful. Their plan was not a great plan, and it closed about 4 years later. In the 1920s, Escondido Hospital opened, and for those of us aware of the old downtown Escondido, the corner of Grand and Broadway was kind of the center of the old downtown, and is still kind of a center for downtown Escondido. And right near the corner of Broadway and Grand, on the south side of the street, west of Broadway, was a building that was used for the Escondido Hospital. And then in 1933, some people in Anaheim, in Orange County, got wind of the fact that there was no hospital in Escondido, so a nurse from the Anaheim Sanitarium and a dietitian came to town and helped get the Escondido Community Hospital started. And it was also located close to the corner of Grand and Broadway. It was actually on Broadway, a little south of Grand, on the west side. And the site of the old Sears building and the Howard Johnson Furniture building, there was a different structure at that time. But it was noted to be a very crowded hospital. It had only 13 beds. So eventually it became obvious that there wasn't enough room here, and the citizens of Escondido felt that they just needed a larger hospital. The town was slowly growing. And land was obtained about five blocks from the corner of Grand and Broadway on a prominent hill east of downtown on Grand Avenue. And this was the site of Palomar Memorial Hospital. And the memorial part was to indicate that they were recognizing those that had served in World War II. And it was a real community effort to get it started. And there were also state and federal funds. So there was even a story told about the Escondido Glee Club at Escondido High School raising $75 to contribute to the building of the hospital. So it was opened in 1950 with 37 beds and a small staff. Over the next 62 years, it grew to over 300 beds and closed in August of 2012. And now we have the new $1 billion Palomar Medical Center. Well, just going into my personal history, I grew up in the Pasadena area, went to school there, graduated from high school, and actually graduated from Pasadena City College, which was a junior college, and went to UC Riverside, graduated there in 1958. So after that, I did my internship at Orange County, and that was before the University of California, Irvine took over the hospital, and it was a large county hospital. And I found that I just really liked all aspects of medicine. I couldn't really decide that I liked one better than the other, so I ended up deciding to go into family practice. And I took a residency in Martinez, California, which is in the Bay Area, at Contra Costa County Hospital. And while I was up there, I guess I made a trip back to Pasadena to see my mother, and she got me a dental appointment, and I again saw Dr. Spencer, and he said, I've got an idea for you. He said, I've actually got a second home down in Palma Valley, and a lot of LA people are building second homes down there. Why don't you set up a practice down in Palma Valley? And I thought about it, but then that didn't seem like the greatest idea to me, because that is a pretty isolated rural area. So one of my friends in my residency class was also talking about North San Diego County. He thought it was just a tremendous area, poised for much growth and a lot of potential, a beautiful area, great place to live. So so I did strongly consider it. Looked at a few other places, and when I came down here, I checked out Oceanside, Vista, Fallbrook, and I came to Escondido. And it so happened that the California Medical Association at that time had a kind of a want ad that they distributed. It was called Blue Sheet. You probably remember that, Ralph. And if you wanted to recruit, you got a free ad in the Blue Sheet. And Ollie Thomas had put an ad in for a family practitioner, and I gave him a call one day, and he said, come on over. And we had a nice chat, and talked about things, and pretty soon I was offered a position. So the group was then called Penn Elm Medical Group. There were 5 of us altogether, and as you say, over the years we added more. I think we maybe got up to 9 or 10 eventually. And the group kind of dissolved a few years ago when it formed a partnership with Scripps Clinic. As Lee mentioned, it was volunteer coverage, and we were able to dig up enough doctors to kind of cover it. So each doctor might have had 4 or 5 shifts a month. It was voluntary. I understand that earlier it was mandatory to be on the staff. You had to cover the emergency room, and but it evolved into a voluntary system. And other doctors I remember that took ER call were Mike Saltz Ron Hoyt, and Bruce Lennox. So it was a way to build a practice, but we also felt it was a way to serve our community, something that was valuable to the community, to have a functioning emergency room. And also it supported the hospital staff. So it was pretty busy in the evenings and weekends. Often we had to work late. I didn't spend too many nights there, but often had to work pretty late, and we could go home, but often got called back once or twice. Weekends were busy, but the volume is nothing like the 60,000 now that are seen in the emergency room, 60,000 a year. In obstetrics, a lot of family practitioners did OB, but I think for the most part, they probably didn't have busy practices in OB, and I think I delivered 3 or 4 babies a month. And then in 1976, there was kind of a crisis where, for some reason, the insurance companies decided to up the premiums for anybody doing OB. So our premiums were actually up to I think the same level as somebody doing full-time OB. Well, it just wouldn't work for us to continue to do that. Financially, it just didn't pan out. So many family practitioners were forced out of OB at that time. There was a dedication to quality at Palomar Hospital. There was also a dedication to be sure that we took advantage of the advances in medicine and moved ahead. We had scrutiny as far as talking about quality of our medical staff. We had scrutiny for the applicants that came wanting to join our staff, and not everybody that wanted to get in was accepted to the medical staff, and we checked out references pretty carefully. So we thought that was for the best of the medical community to have a strong staff. So I think there was steady improvement in the quality of care over the years, and it was really at a high level when I stopped practicing 5 years ago. I might just mention maybe what the future of family practice.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, the future of family
Each one of you to
practice.
predict where you think Escondido will be in 10 years, say.
Well, I see the future of family practice maybe as family practitioners, as more overseers for maybe others that are giving care. There's going to be a great shortage, a manpower shortage of family practitioners. So to me it makes sense to have nurse practitioners and PAs in the office seeing the uncomplicated cases. There's probably no reason we need to be seeing coals and scratches and hangnails and things like that. So
I think that physicians are going to end up supervising primary care nurses and specialists being on hand when needed. Hospital care, I think it's going to be less and less.
Great. You have a wonderful presentation, gentlemen, from first-handers, really. So let's give them all a round of applause, and thanks a lot to all the audience.